everyone, welcome back to ThinkScript Studies. My name is Mike Fairborn. Pleasure to be back here with you today, folks. Really looking forward to discussion today, looking specifically at trends, defining a trend, and then finding within that trend a counter trend on a reversal pattern using an indicator to give us more indications, more clarifications of a potential follow through. So building clearly on a bull flag, but diving in deeper into the indicator side and really kind of helping to develop the ThinkScript to enable us to see that probability. In addition, folks, we did receive a topic request last week from a class we had a couple of weeks ago on the MACD, but really wanted to take that MACD and shift it into a column indicator. So I'm going to explain how to do that. We've got that script ready to go as well. It's great to be with you all today. I'm joined again by my manager, Brett Crowther, in the chat. Really happy to have him here today. Does such a great job and really appreciate him being here and helping out in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that, folks. But yeah, any questions, comments you have, definitely feel free to throw those into the chat. I'll keep a watch on those as well as they come through. But great to have you all here today. Hello to you, Sim the architect here. We've got Robert Boucheret. Great to have you. Chris Jim, Roger Scott, and hi, nice to have you all on board and everybody else. So with that, folks, by the way, that was a topic request that we received, and a great way to provide that topic request or to provide it to me is through the chat. The one I got, though, if you put, you can answer, or you can put a question on at the end of the YouTube posting. You can post questions in YouTube, and that is how I got today's topic request. We'll start off with that first, but before we even get to that, let's hit some disclosure items to get the show on the road. So first off, I wanted to state that options do carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Information here is for general information purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security chart pattern or investment strategy. Paper money application is for educational purposes only. And as a quick note here too, backtesting results presented are hypothetical and do not guarantee that the same strategy implemented today would produce similar results. So that's a key point in our discussion because we do tie in quite a bit of discussion. And we do go ahead and look at backtesting, and that's just a key note to put in there. Investing does involve risk, including the loss of principal, and past performance of any security or strategy does not guarantee future results or success. So with that, good afternoon to all of you just joining us here. We've got Art, George, Frank, and David. Good afternoon to each of you. So great to be with you back with you. And let's go ahead and just start off our discussion right now. Again, I wanted to mention to you that I'm picking up on a question, a topic request off a class that we did a couple of weeks ago. If you remember that class, and by the way, I'm going to post all of these scripts in the more section under the YouTube link, the webcast itself, once it does get posted. And it goes through a process of being recorded. So it'll be just after this class. If you don't have those yet, I'm definitely happy to share those with you. But as you may recall, we created this scan a couple of weeks ago. And I'll go into it right now. Let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and let's take this off. That was our one from last week, but I'm going to go ahead and just load this one up. And what we had here was a scan on, let's just do one adjustment here. Perfect. Going to load. This was our MACD. Might have to just move my head a little bit. There we go. This was the crossover code is what it was. And as you recall, the crossover code, what it did, and I'll kind of really zoom in on this to kind of show it to you. But here is, for example, I've just chosen Cisco as an example here. But this is based on the price action of the underlying stock. It's very important to understand what the indicator is doing first. We use this as also a divergence indicator. But we also had a secondary one that we looked at, which was a signal indicator for timeliness. We're looking at really an exponential 12 and 26 exponential moving average that we're able to get from prices themselves. The convergence and divergence of the 12 and 26 is noted in the main line MACD. That is our line right there, the green line, as you can see. And with that green line, in fact, let me just kind of highlight this here, right there. That's our main line MACD. And then we get a signal, which is the 9-period moving average that is giving us a crossover there. So we've got this, that is a script, and that script can be used. Just go ahead and run it real quick and just show you how it did work. But we'll scan that right now. This is on, we're scanning in the S&P 500 right now. We get 32 matches out of 500 companies, so not too many matches. Again, this had a look back period that we had created of, and I'll pull it up here so you can see the script itself, but this was within the last 3 bars. 3 bars, and in this case, 3 days is what we're looking at, and we've created that here. If you don't have that, again, I'll have that shared link in the more section in the description once this does become posted here for us. But many of you might have already got it from a couple of weeks ago, but there it is. And so that's the scan here. But the question is can we get this crossover script to be loaded up within the Market Watch tab over here and under quotes specifically? The answer to that is yes, because we can take the same code. We just want to change the last portion of that code. In fact, let's get this off for now. I'm just going to hit customize. I'm right clicking on any of these columns. I think many of you know that, but we're just going to go over here and we're just going to remove these for now. Okay, and so I'm going to show you that code. I built it over here. I'm just going to customize right now. We'll click going back to customize. Remember, we do have custom columns that can be built. In fact, the one I've created over here is just custom column 7 right here. There are quite a few that can be added in to Market Watch tab, and there are some ways to add some additional ones in as well, just so you're aware of that. Let's go ahead and just take a look at the script by clicking on the script code over here on the left-hand side. That icon will pull that up here for us, and you'll notice something as we go through here that we have the exact same coding up top. ThinkScript, put this right over here. ThinkScript for the scan, we just changed the bottom in terms of, and I've kind of highlighted this, assign colors based on the condition. Now the request was, can we have it green if it matches for bullish, or red if bearish? In other words, if it doesn't match. And that is the condition that was created over here. Okay, so we've built the condition, we've assigned, basically this is the process to do that, assign background color. Now, if condition, then color green, else red. And you'll notice, so again, that same script, I've added it in. So we've got it here. It's listed. In fact, we'll pull it over here to the left. You can see it's already populating green and red. It worked, and it worked initially on the scan tab. So we know the coding was correct. This same coding right here we used now in the Market Watch tab. So you don't have to rebuild it. There's no reason to kind of double up those efforts. You just simply take the existing code, which is basically this section right here. Right there, all the different points. We went through these step by step in the class, just like we'll go through the new script today. But you take that, and instead of putting in a signal condition down below, we have changed that. And just to highlight the difference, let's go back to the Market Watch tab. We'll click in the custom column, and now we'll go to the edit the formula, and we'll pull it back up again. There we go. Off our second monitor, and we'll widen this out so we can just kind of see it. We have just instead assigned a background color. So this is still based upon, and this is a really, really important part, because it's going to be based upon what group of companies we're looking at. Now, I did flip that over here to the S&P 500, so it kind of matched what we were just looking at on the scan tab. But folks, you can really put in anything else you want in here. We can go in. There are some limitations in the demo account, in terms of going out. We're able to pull out all 500 companies here. We don't have a lot of columns. That's why. So there's not a lot of mathematical calculations to make. If I would have kept those other 3 columns, the 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month, we wouldn't have gotten all of our data here, at least to the tune of 500 companies. So just keep that in mind. You might want to narrow those columns down and just focus in on the one that you're looking at. We still need to change the name of this column, which I can do right now. We'll do that as well. But yeah, very important. And you have quite a few selections you can make over here. I think the individual might have been looking at maybe their own watch list, or even, for example, you could run it. I don't know if we would get the full Russell 2000 list of companies, but perhaps we might. In the live account, I think you would if you were just looking at a single column or two. But when there's these definite calculations and then you're looking at a script that's really actually quite long, well, that could be, I mean, if you think about it, it has to go through this formula every single time 500 times, and going through it 2,000 times would be quite a bit more. But those are the limitations, but that's it. So just adding that last section in would make the difference. One nice thing too, once the column gets up and calculated, we can just click on it, and just like the request came in, everything red, it's a false read, and everything green is a positive. And let's just go ahead and take a look at this right now and make sure that that is the case. So here is Baker Hughes. I'll just choose one as an example, BKR, right here on the left-hand side. It is telling us that it met that MACD signal over the past 3 bars. It's the same code. And let's go ahead and take a look at BKR right now. So these guys are in the oil service group, but let's take a look and see if that's the case. Now, I think we got BKR last time we did this too, which was like a couple weeks ago. That might have been our initial signal. Let's just draw that out. Initial signal right there on the MACD. So the average line again that's the purple line the 9-period moving average is the purple. That's the average line. The convergence and divergence indicator of the 12 and 26, and again, we're just using the defaults there, is what I refer to as the mainline MACD. It's also referred to in the script as the value line. They call it the value line MACD, which we base some convergences and divergences off of, but we're simply pulling away. In other words, the 12 moving average is outpacing the 26 moving average. And again, those are traditionally exponential moving averages. So putting more weight on the most recent data, most recent moving averages, what you're getting there. You got it there. And I think that move right there is tied into right there. You could just see it. It just barely crossed over. I think it's today. Now that was after, it looks like earnings, and well, did it do it before earnings? No. It looks like it was below there yesterday, but today there is your earnings follow through. Wow, that's up 6%. That was a bigger move in that group. And just out of curiosity, how's that doing? I knew, remember we looked at this, there's longer term resistance over here. So let's see if it can get through there. A lot of these, by the way, just a really quick side note, are oftentimes tied into the direction of the underlying crude product itself. And by the way, that's down. So obviously the market's responding well to those earnings. No signal here, that's for sure. All right. So excellent. Thank you, Brett. Let's see. There is a question in here. Oh, yeah, Mike. Turning over the questions. Let's take a look now. Mike, you said there are ways to add custom quote columns. Please share. It seems to have reached a limit. Okay. So yeah, there is an approach there. I haven't reached that limit either. I was reading that on the Think script. That might be something we can post going forward. Now, I will say this. We can always do this anytime we're adding it, and we might be able to copy this and move it over. Let me just try this one real quick. So when I'm on the charts actually right now. So I love the question, Chris. Right here on the Flask icon, notice we have a create over here. We don't have that create button if you go to the Market Watch tab and we go back into our customization. And I think that's what you're running into, Chris, right there. Correct? Yeah. You do not have it there. So the charts does have it, and we can create right there in ThinkScript. So there is a new study. Let's just try what we could do. I don't think I have a custom. But let's see. Let me just try this first. Let's go over here. Okay, I'm going to have to dive into that a little bit deeper. I read it. I haven't actually done it because I'm not quite there yet. Love the question. Noted. Okay, noted, and we'll get to the bottom of that. But I did see an explanation of there were ways to do it. And by the way, when I share this with you and you add it, that is an additional one. And so if we had other shared scripts and we were to add that in, that could be added as well too. So that could be added. Like if I share it, you're going to be able to post it there and have it. So just think about that for just a moment. I'm just thinking we could share, post in a new script, and then kind of add that as another one is where I'm going with that, Chris. But because when I share it with you guys, it should provide you that script. In fact, let me just change the title of it now so we have that. I said I would do that. We'll just call this, much like we had the other one, and this was just the MACD. We can keep it custom. I'll just title the whole thing, just a MACD underscore crossover, like that. Okay. So that is, it's always helpful to kind of describe the column name to match exactly what it is you're doing. It's just easier to understand what's going on there. And notice those are still loading. It took a little bit to load up, but there you go. So when I share this, and by the way, these scripts are not guaranteed for timeliness or accuracy, but let me just go ahead and do that right now while we're talking about it. How about that? So I can go over here and share this, and it should be able to be added as a secondary one. And by the way, you can always change those too. In other words, if you shared enough of these and added them in, you had enough of these shared and put in, then you could change the names of those. And that is a workaround without having that create button. Don't know if that's what's going to do it, but I'll just call this here right now. So just, let's see. Crossover. Okay, so we'll just share this, and I will post this into the chat again, just so you have it. All right, bingo. There you go. Okay, good. Topic requests, love those, and always happy to work on those throughout the week. I didn't get everything down correctly early on, but we got it towards the end of the week, and that's why I love those requests, particularly after the class or over the weekend. It's nice to be able to see those too. All right, well, let's talk about really trying to find those reversal signals within seconds in the direction of the trend. And I want to talk about that initially. So if we were looking at another company over here, I'm going to throw one out here that did come up on the screen itself. This is NetApp. It used to be Network Appliance, and here we have it. Now, I really want to focus today on a couple of different things because I mentioned as we looked at this code, we want to make sure that the stock is trending to the upside, and we want to try to get in on these pullbacks that also give us a special reference as it relates to the RSI. Okay, now the RSI has been known with the trend to kind of fall within a range, and that range, and let's just go ahead and pull it. Let's just change. Let's get rid of that MACD right now for a moment, and then what we'll do is we will pull this out right there. So there is our RSI here. Now, if you've gone back and looked at the RSI, there are some interesting correlations that will tend to happen in an upward trend. So we could say, gosh, that looks like a bull flag. But how can we verify that with a momentum-based indicator? And how can we screen it, get those numbers just very, very quickly? Well, one of the things, and I would encourage you to go back and take a look at this, the trend has to be up. Okay, but we're going to be looking at specific ranges on the RSI. So we're combining a couple of indications, possible probabilities, all within one script here to get us that data quickly. Let's start off first with an upward trend. So guys, as we're thinking about an upward trend, what are some easy ways to kind of tell the computer, communicate to it that we want to see an upward trend already in place? Now, I'll throw that out to you. Love to see any feedback that you might have in the chat. But one of the things that can be helpful is just using a really simple indication, simple moving average right there. I've got to change my 20, but some of the main moving averages that are often, well, frequently used, I'll put it that way, 100, 200, and the 50. Now you could use any of these. I'm actually just going to use the 50 right now. We'll show that study so we can see it to help us to define an upward trend. In other words, is price action holding above the 50-period moving average? Is it above it when we get our RSI signal? Okay, that defines the trend itself. Okay, so that helps us to define the trend. Helps the computer to recognize that. That's really important because if you get an RSI that might be within a particular range, it could have been something like this, where it shot down and it's been very weak, and now it comes back up. We're not looking for that. We're looking for more of the RSI, maybe holding in a range on the pullback. Okay. But there is a moving average. I'm just using the simple right now. Now, tying into that, let's start on our script so you can see it. We're back over here. I'm going to go ahead and clear this one out. And we're going to go into our RSI script specifically that had been built. And it's really a trend reversal. And you'll notice I've titled it both trend and RSI reversals. Oh, okay. I need to spell it correctly, but there you go. There you have it. So this is going to be the script. And so let's pull it up right now and we'll take a look, first of all, at that moving average. Now, again, as we always do, we have the input in here, and then we use the specific function within ThinkScript. And there are a list of functions within ThinkScript. Notice the key one I'm focusing in on right now. We'll take a look at the RSI in just a second. But right here, we're looking at the length of the moving average. I've got it as a 50. Now, could this be changed? It sure could. By the way, Robert Boucher had a really good follow-up point made stating that, hey, you can have the moving average on a separate script and easily go in and just change that if you wanted to. And I that's a great point. Instead of keeping it all in one, which this one is, you can split those up, maybe make these changes a little bit easier. But if you wanted to change it, you have the ability to do so right there. Okay, you're defining is it the 50? It's the 50. So this would also need to be changed, and there's more references down here, but specifically that is the trend for the 50. But there are other ways to do it. And by the way, this is the calculation. If you highlight it, it will bring other portions up where it shows that function that we created here. This is the calculation. You have to define the 50 MA is the average. And what do we have over here? Simply just stating that price is above, and I've tried to put every one of these in a description here. Price is above the 50-day moving average. So we've defined price above MA, another specific ThinkScript function, is greater than, equals, close is greater than the 50-period moving average. In other words, close is what? Close is the closing price. So that portion is within this script. So let's do this. Talking about the RSI next, let's talk about what the RSI is. I think we all know, we've already had discussions on the MACD. We know what simple moving averages are, how they can work with trends, but we need to really understand what the RSI is doing mathematically first and why it could be useful, why it does work, possibly, from time to time. Let's do this. Let's go up top, and we can always go into our charts here. If we click on our Flask, and there is the RSI. Now, here is the coding for the RSI right there. Okay, what is this coding doing? It's looking at closing prices based upon changes in percentages. There is a description of what's going on here. If I just type in the RSI, go over here into the question mark, it's really nice. You get an explanation of it right here, and it does tell you how some ways that traders, investors use it. The one I'm referring to today that we're going to be looking at between the 40 and 50 values is not listed here. The traditional way is really between overbought and oversold, and you've seen those lines. In fact, just as a quick note, you've got them right over here. Here's your 30. Prices are oversold over here and overbought above 70 is a way, and that's not an issue. That's those ThinkScripts can be built fairly easily. But it does state here the RSI is an oscillator that rates the strength of a security on a scale of 0 to 1, comparing the magnitude of recent gains and losses. And it does that by comparing percent closing prices. Closing prices. If you think about it, closing prices, if we think about it, how can a price get higher, okay, if it's not closing higher? The close really helps us to define a trend. If we just even do just a quick sneak peek right behind the scenes up here and look at these levels. We got up to this level. How did we get there without actually closing higher? We had to close higher to get there. Now, what the RSI does is it measures over a 14 period, which is what the default is. 14 period. It's really funny how Wells Wilder came up with that. It's half of a moon cycle is what it is. So I guess the moon cycle is about 28 days. So that's what he used there. Interesting, but with everybody, I think that's a common default. But notice the closing prices over here. They're really, really, really tight. I mean, they're really tight through here. But over here, the closing prices are really, really widening out. In fact, I'm going to move this over just a little bit, and we can still keep this. In fact, I can just keep this going right now. But as you see that, look at the closing prices here. Bigger bars. We can see it in the bars, but the closing prices are widening. Notice over here, look at that RSI. It's actually, even though we're going higher to a degree, the magnitude, as it explained in the description there, is weakening. Closing prices are getting closer over a 14-day rolling period. They're not as wide. And over here, this hits in, and wow, they really widen out. Why did it move so big relative to this? It's because we're still looking at 14 bars. And what were the 14 bars doing over here? Well, they were very, very tight. When those bars widen out, we're comparing those against the older bars in that 14-day period, and they expand. Now, why would this be helpful? Well, if they do dip and they hold within a specific range, and there have been a number of technical writers and investigators that have looked at this, and they say, hey, gosh, it's oftentimes between 40 and 50 on these pullbacks. Can you see that going back? And I'd encourage you to go back and I'm going through this so you can go ahead and historically look back. I think it's important for everybody to kind of prove to themselves that whatever it is you're looking at makes sense. Okay, and that is part of back testing, but you can see over time. Of course, it doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future, but it does give us a sense of, hindsight, maybe possibly into foresight. It can happen in the future. Look at the pullback here. If we zoom in and just take a snapshot of exactly this range right here, and we say, that is where we were, I'm sorry, we've got to change that. I don't want to erase everything just yet, but I'm just going to say between 40 and 50 right here. I'll move this up. Be very careful. Straight lines there. Okay. So RSI was between 40 and 50, right in that range. Okay. We are above the 50-period moving average. Now, we weren't always above the 50-period moving average. We were below the 50-period average for a couple of bars there, a couple of closing prices. We got back up above it, and we were between 40 and 50. That right there. So let's just go ahead and put a check there. That's part of what the code's looking at in terms of like an algorithm looking at both conditions. The second condition is also met, 40 to 50. Right there. Again, we're using the closing prices. We're not looking at a pullback that is so deep that it goes, that it's when it resumes its upward trend, it's not in this range. We want it specifically in this range. We don't want it too high. We don't want it too low. It's kind of the sweet spot. Here's another one right over here. You got above that level, it might not have matched up perfectly, and maybe another one right over here. But you'll notice it doesn't give the signal immediately. We didn't have that over here. If I draw one more, okay, well, we still have colors left. We'll use red. Look at the RSI on this pullback. It kind of allows for a flag pattern to develop. In other words, we have the spike, and then we see a consolidation. But it's not such a deep consolidation that it goes outside of our 40-50 band range here, right? It still holds within that range. And so you get that confirming the trend again right there. And that is the entry. Now, that was obviously a big move. This came up recently again. Notice where we are. Here is the 50. We're above that. And we're also between the 40 and 50 here. So I'm just going to show you, in hindsight, we've got one here, clearly, that would have triggered once you got back up above the moving average, and then you're getting one over here for the second one. Okay, so that's what's going on there. So let's look at the code now, because we've got to break that down in a little bit more detail. Then we'll look at a couple of companies. We'll take a look. We'll send out a poll, and we'll choose one of these, which might look most interesting to the group for a paper trade. Okay, back to our scan here. We'll pull it back up. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this. So we have to define the RSI. These lengths are in place, indicator parameters. It's a 14. We got the lower bound and we got the upper bound. And notice specifically, we have to put this function in exactly as it stands right now. We can't vary outside of that. If I said RSI P, look at this. No such variable exists. There is not a function that exists there. It's got to be exactly as it stands here. If not, the OK button stays gray and we can't submit it. So you've got to use their coding. Okay, we've got an RSI calculation. Now down to the RSI, this is the interesting part. Notice over here, condition RSI between 40 and 50. There you go, RSI between. And that equals RSI greater than the lower bound RSI. And we've already defined what that lower bound is, 40. And RSI not above or less than the upper bound, and we've defined that. So these codes can be interesting. This is one that you really have to have an actual code for. We have tried, well, I have tried in the past in this class without any success. But if you were to go over here and we'll open up another study as a case in point. I'm going to customize over here, and we're going to use the condition wizard. I'm going to show you the limitations here of the condition wizard. So if we're in the condition wizard and we want to look at a condition here, and we're looking at the study here, and we have an RSI. Now, notice we don't have, what do we have in here? We've got crosses, we've got greater than, we've got less than. What we're really missing here in terms of creating this in one sort of a script here through the condition wizard is the in between. Is equal and is not equal. Now, there could be some ways we could work this out over time, but crosses greater than, less than, equal to. Crosses above, you come over here and you just have to place that in. So really understanding or having this sort of a general idea of what that code looks like right here is very, very helpful. RSI. Now, are there other indicators that have that exact same partially, like, for example, MACD between? Yeah, you can do that. So that is a function that can be used. Finally, at the end of this script, all we're simply doing now is we're combining the initial moving average that we looked at first to our RSI range, where we combine conditions, and that is going to define our signal. And it's as simple as this once we get it, because we have defined both RSI between and price above MA, which was the closing price of the stock is greater than the 50-period moving average. If it meets those two, we should be good to go. Let's go ahead and run it right now. I'm going to click on scan, and it will give us a list of those companies. And there we go. So we've only got 24. Now, we're still using the S&P 500, but that was pretty quick. It went through 500 companies, ran through all that code on all of them, and gave us a chance to kind of take a look at it. But what should we expect to see here? Well, we should expect to see, exactly what we looked at. The trend should be up above the 50. We're going to verify that on some of these, as well as within that RSI range. Okay, so a couple that I hadn't seen as I'd ran this earlier in the week. There is our NetApp. So NetApp's there. We've also got, else do we have? Okay, so a couple energy companies. Do we see anything else here that would be of interest? I mean, once you have this sort of information, it could be helpful too, just to go in here and just say, well, what about the sub industry? Since you were able to develop it, you can come up top and then throw that in there, and then we can say what's really moving. What's really moving? We've got oil and gas is in there. A lot of, well, some hotels, household products, there's software, kind of a mixed bag. Uh, you should take a look at this list, but that can be interesting to kind of consider as well. Wow, Tesla? Oh, okay. Well, Tesla actually, let me just look at the Tesla real quick. It's kind of fun because once you get these up, you're just like, oh, interesting. Oh, I know why. Because I knew Tesla had dipped, but Tesla had a fantastic recovery off these bottoms. In fact, we're above the 50-period moving average, and I just wanted to double check that because I knew we were down on earnings. We're still clearly above that level, and look where that RSI is holding. Between 40 and 50, and prices have begun to go sideways. Now, is that a guarantee it's going to stay there? No, but you could be looking at other indications too, although I can't say yet we have a K hold, a close above the high to low day, because we would need to be above that range. I'll zoom in. I mean, by definition, you've got to close above the high to low day, and we haven't done that yet. But somebody could be looking at that, and that would give even one additional trigger. Man, we could really have a long think script if we wanted to do that as well. So that it's giving us a K hold on the day as well. But yeah, I don't want to do that one right now. We've added a lot, and yeah, we don't have time anyways. But I'm just saying, it fits. And is the trend turned up? Well, look at this. The 50 helped define it for us. It's interesting. We broke above this high right there, and yeah, we had a higher low too. Right on the chart, actually. These are older lines that I've drawn in. I guess we looked at them in the previous class I taught, but there you have it. Now, massive spike on the RSI, by the way. By the way, this was, that's incredible. I mean, it was up, it's down now, but that was up 88%, 87%, I guess, or near that. Let's say above 80 over that range. That's what caught me off guard, as I was thinking of the dip, but it already moved up quite a bit. Anyhow, there is Tesla right there. Let's look at a few others, and then we'll put in a screen in here. And by the way, before I do that, I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat and see what else we've got. Oh, thank you, Brett. Excellent. Appreciate the help in there. Let's see. Okay, some conversation amongst yourselves. Let's see. Oh, good. Okay, that's great, Sim. Yeah. Would it work like the other green and red? Yes, I mean, something like this could too. We could still convert this, Sim, if that's what you're referring to. We could convert this into a script just by changing that bottom section. We know the top section works, so we could do that, and we could put it like in the Market Watch tab, so we could look at a particular group of stocks and see the same thing: gray, green, bullish, red, not. Or if it matches or doesn't match. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, it is holding that. We were looking at that on Tesla, Chris. Exactly. Maybe we can compare this one. This is one, LHX. I don't recall this, but just for the sake of looking at it, LHX, Harris L3, yeah, it's been going up for a while. And here you go. So it pulled back on earnings. Some people might want to wait the day after earnings, but it did come down and kind of rest near previous highs right there. It's kind of interesting. You can see the defined trend and how the combination of the moving average and RSI might have been helpful. We'll go back here, take a look at maybe a couple more. Maybe NetApp's one we can look at as well. Seagate, let's just do a couple more. Seagate and TMUS. T-Mobile, that is. Oh, so T-Mobile's had a long upward trend, just barely above the 30-day. It's holding, the 50-day moving average. Kind of fascinating. It's sitting right there. And then I think CLX was in there too. CCL's in there. I'm going to just do it by symbol. There we go. Apple's in there too. So Apple, Tesla, yeah, Clorox. Okay, so we'll just do a few more. Here we go. CLX. Oh, look at that. So that's fascinating. It's just barely above the 50-period moving average right now. Has earnings coming up. Downward trend, but more recently, higher lows. Maybe the change in trend. We don't have a change in trend there yet. Let's wait for a defined change in trend. We could still use price channels to help us define the trend further if we ever wanted to. Here's Apple. right there out of pullback right within that range. So let's do this. Let's take a look at a couple of these. Let's do one more. NetApp. Okay, so this one's going to be a hold between these two, and then we can put a trade on just for fun here. Let's do this. So these two. First one is NetApp. Second one is Apple. So long, strong trends with a possible pullback. I'll let that go through. I'll give it about 20 seconds, and then we'll just do a trade on one of those. Now, again, as I mentioned, paper trade, but as I mentioned, folks, we can always wait for a potential bounce here to whatever the case might be. And by the way, this is interesting. I don't know if we would close up on the day, but this has got what we'd mentioned plus the possibility of and we don't know if this will unfold, but there's another indication that is a morning star pattern. Normally you get let's say a white candle here, a bullish candle in this case. We have it defined that way. A bullish candle over here would unfold, but you don't necessarily need that for a morning star. So you get a sharp move down. There's your reversal doji right on the 50-period moving average right there. And then lastly, the follow-through day. Generally, though, yeah, you'll a lot of times get a white candle or an upward move, but we're not seeing that just yet. Okay, so it looks like we're going to go ahead and stop that poll. It is NetApp. Let's see if we get the results here. I believe you guys get to see the results as well. It should pop up. But we've got Apple 35, about a third to two-thirds. The two-thirds win, and it's going to be NetApp. Appreciate the votes come through. But let's take a look at NetApp right now. So the possibility of a trade in here, just to wrap things up, we'll go ahead and put in a round lot in here. That should be 100, and it is. Okay, so that is NetApp. Now, before we put this trade in, of course, what could be indications that it didn't work out? Like we said, in this class, we're going to go ahead and just put it in now, but some traders might want to wait for a follow-through. They might want to wait with whatever stock they're looking at, right? They might want to wait for it to break above a high or start to break above the 10-period moving average. Let's see where that's at relative. It'll be in a black line. Okay, so not quite there. It could wait for a move above this level, but we're just going to place our paper trade now. What could be indications that for possible exit levels is maybe a break below that 50-period moving average. In fact, what I'm going to do is just put an alert on here for the possibility of an exit right below the doji low. So I'm going to right click. We're not too far from it. I'm going to create alert. I just right clicked on the chart, create alert at that level where I pointed to, and it's going to be at or below that point. And I'm just going to put a little note in here so when it texts me, I know about it. Below doji. Okay. There we go. And that message can be sent out as well. But let's just go ahead and place that, and we'll call it a day. There it is, verification at that level. And we will track these within this account here each and every week as we go through this, and just look at these as well, just as a way to just see what's happening with those trades that did have ThinkScripts associated with them. Folks, well, I hope you found this informative and useful today. Again, it was all about price reversals and really trying to get those very, very quickly. And within seconds, you can see how fast we can get those once we get the script in place. Now, if you'll take just a moment before we're done, and if you like today's presentation, smash that like button. It really does help get our content and this kind of content coming up more frequently. It helps that YouTube algorithm to keep that content coming up. And so if you're able to do that, that'd be fantastic. In addition, if you haven't done so yet, so easy to do, just smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And with that, you can subscribe to a whole host of other individuals, above 115,000 of them, that do track our content here each week. Like I said, a whole list of coaches that we have with a lot of great on-demand content from them, and weekly classes as well. So I encourage you to do that. Again, definitely follow Brett and I on X. We'd love to have you follow us there. My handle, Mike Fairborn CS, and Brett is simply Brett Crowther, CROWTHERCS. as well, both on X, formerly Twitter. Finally, last thing I'll note, and awesome, thanks, Brett, for posting that. Please provide any feedback for today's session just by clicking on that survey. It's a really quick survey. If there's something you liked or just any feedback you'd like to look at, my manager, Brett, here, as well as myself, we'll go through and look at each of those comments. We'll be sure and do that for sure. But on that note, folks, it's just about time. It is time for us to finish. It's just about time for the weekend. So I wish you all a great weekend. I'll look forward to future discussions with you, and we'll see you next time.